Hey, welcome to the Proseek channel. Today we're here with Cullen, Ifbb Pro Men's Physique, and we have a cool video today. So what we're going to do is actually rank the best men's physique Olympia champion of all time in the most objective way we can. So thanks for joining, Drew.
Absolutely, man. I saw you doing this the other day, and I believe it was a couple of weeks ago, and you had it with another guy, and you were going through it, and I thought it was a great concept. Then you messaged me the next day. I thought it was cool, man. It's something different. You know me, I got a podcast with Alex, Erin, and Chris, and we're always looking at new ideas, and I always encourage other people to do their own way, but you got to make it different. And I thought this was a perfect opportunity to kind of do something a little different that a lot of people are going to see, and you know, it's fun, man. I enjoy it.
Yeah, exactly. And I know you're on that podcast and you guys have gone through this topic before, but I tried to think of a way where while you guys were talking about it, I was like, how can we make this like more objective and not just like,
there needs to be a specific stipulation, because I remember when Ben was on with me, he wanted to argue, and it's like, who's the best of all time? It's like, okay, are we going off of impressive? Are we going on relevancy of the most recent? Because criteria has always been different throughout the years. It's kind of like the LeBron James and Michael Jordan conversation. Are we going off of just titles, just mathematics of who has the most titles, who has the most Olympias, who has the most Arnolds, like whatever, or just shows in general? Like there has to be a stipulation to talk about the greatest of all time, because in my opinion, I could say this guy's the most impressive, but that doesn't make him the greatest of all time just because I think he's impressive, right? So we got to have the stipulations before we have this conversation, which is the biggest thing.
I'm glad you said that, because here's our stipulations. So
here we go.
We're breaking it down by 3 different categories, and you can tell me if you want to how we define these categories can change. But what my thoughts were influence, so their overall impact on the sport, on for men's physique and outside the sport too. It's like obviously if this was like an Arnold or Chris Bumstead, this would be 10 out of 10, right?
Yeah.
Titles. So this is not just Olympia wins, but kind of a combination of all their titles together. But obviously we would probably weigh Olympia wins higher than other shows as well. So I have a column for Olympia wins, Arnold wins, Pittsburgh, New York, so that we can kind of keep track of their major titles. So if we were to just put a score out of 10, combining all their accomplishments together.
Okay.
And then physique, this is the one where I'm going to let you choose how we define this. So there's 2 ways we can do it. So the way I did it with Sid, who's also men's physique pro, we did basically how would they do in the 2025 standard.
Okay.
But another way we could do this is how dominant were they in their era, and that could make it more fair for the older champions.
Okay.
So I'll let you choose how we're going to define that physique category.
Okay. I'm thinking, okay, it's good to have the conversation of the definitions, because definitions have meanings, right? And this is very subjective, because somebody could just say physique overall. But if you have physique versus now versus back then, obviously Mark Anthony being the first one,
yeah,
you have to have some sort of a base, because his physique from the first one is so far dramatic from 2025. So for example, Ryan Terry's been around damn near since the beginning. Brandon's been around damn near since the beginning. A lot of these guys, Andre Ferguson, damn near the beginning, they have consistently evolved with the sport as the sport was evolving with them.
Right.
You know, so a lot of that criteria, I think, was changed because of the top guys were also getting bigger. So they had to fit what was the division was growing into. So I think that those guys are obviously just going to be higher physique wise, but for the time being of where Mark Anthony was, we could just go off of. So for that one, I don't think it would be fair to compare it to today.
Right. So what if we did like how dominant were they in their era?
Okay.
How dominant was their physique in their era?
Yeah, we'll do that.
So I think that would be more fair for the.
Yeah. I wanted to explain what I was kind of thinking, just for the people that are viewing it, because somebody else might just think physique overall or physique,
right,
you know, currently or back then, because it's just very difficult. It's like looking at just any national show or men's physique back in the day. Like the posing was also different too. You had to have feet together straight on, so it was also just an overall different look.
So we have all 6 of the champions here. Okay. We have their titles here. So I have their Olympia wins, Arnold wins, Pittsburgh, New York. So we can kind of combine what we think about those. And yeah, this will be mostly your list. I'll challenge you if I hear something.
Yeah.
I'll challenge your logic, but This is going to be mostly your rankings.
So this is all past Olympia winners only, correct?
Yep, just the 6 Olympia winners we've had.
Because I know there's an argument for Andre Ferguson out there.
Yeah, there's an argument for it, but I don't think.
And I just want to say that I still believe the greatest of all time comes down to an average of everything, but you should still have an Olympia title.
Yeah, I agree.
By the way, which I still think he's trying to go for this year, as he's been saying with his new coach. I want to give a shout out to him. But just strictly for this, we're just going to go off of Olympia champs from the past.
So we can start here with Mark Anthony. Go through what do you think his overall influence on the sport was? And if you were to put a score on it out of 10, what would it be?
So overall would be, for me, the initial at his peak versus the low. We don't hear a lot of relevancy from Mark Anthony now, but at the same time, without a Mark Anthony, we wouldn't have the sport that we have now because it all has to start with 1. So I would put him right in the median at 5.
Okay. Yeah, I think that makes sense. So now we come to titles. He has that 1 Olympia win, no other major pro wins. I'm sure he has some pro show wins, but none of the major titles.
Yeah.
And all of these guys have Olympia wins.
Yeah.
So if we were to give him a score for all the titles he has, what would you do?
So what would you say? Olympia's 10 points? How would you do that? Like Olympia.
So we're ranking out of 10, right? So like 10 would be someone who if we look at a Ryan or Jeremy or Brandon who have 3 titles, 4 titles. So that would be 10 as like all their accomplishments combined.
Mm-hmm.
The best one would be a 10.
Okay.
So compared to that, where would you put it out of 10 would be what you would give it Mark Anthony.
Okay. Since he has 1 of them and the scale is 1 to 10, I would say that the Olympia, I would say, is worth 2 points. So I would say 2 out of 10. Because you got to remember, we're judging really big shows. I'd probably put the Arnold at a 1. I'd put Pittsburgh at a 1, put New York at a 1, or maybe even like a 0.5. It depends. Like every era was different, but I would say a 2 out of 10 just because he has one of the big ones and he's against a lot of guys that mainly all have a lot of multiples, or if they have just 1 title, they also have another show.
Right. Yeah, no, I think that's fair. And then his physique. So now we're talking about in his era. So he only competed really that first year, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if he continued after that. But how dominant was he in that?
I mean, he won the Olympia, so he was good enough at that time. But just like any division, usually like Danny Hester was the first ever classic physique champion. At that time, that was the only standard. But when you compare it to just that era, I'd have to go back at the pictures and kind of look at it. But a lot of the guys just starting off, they had a lot of glaring weaknesses. You know, it was just a pretty boy beach. Like conditioning wasn't extreme, muscularity wasn't extreme. I don't think taper was extreme. It was just having kind of the look that they went for at the time, which is like the beach body, not average, but not unobtainable.
Yeah,
I would
very
say
much you could, naturally obtainable, train for a year or 2 look in the very beginning.
As far as I would say 6 out of 10. And this is not just in general, like this is just out of, I would say, at that time, I can't go lower than that. Like if you were going to compare it to today's Olympia, he wouldn't make it to the Olympia with that package that he brought from 2013.
Yeah, I don't think he would win a local show with that look in 2013.
I agree. But at that time, you look at the dominance of that, it's just kind of, I don't want to give it a 5 because that would say in the middle average. But out of all the pros at that time, I would put him a 6 that was above everybody else.
Right.
So,
yeah, and he wasn't a dominant champion because obviously he didn't continue to win after that. So yeah, I think that's probably about right. So that would give him an average of a 4.3.
Okay.
So next up we have Jeremy. So his influence, where would you give him there?
He's still super influential, bro. Like his following, everything. And he's one of those guys that has climbed to the top. He's had his, I wouldn't even say downfalls, but he's had his personal life. He's had things happen. He has a story, just like I have a story. He just had a story as being a champion, as the most profound champion, with having 4 as of right now currently. So in men's physique, I don't think you can have necessarily a higher influence than Jeremy Buendia did at that time. So I'd say a 10.
Yeah, no, actually, I agree with that. I think, and he's
still relevant.
Still relevant. Still was able to compete this year as recently as this year. Has this gym now. Like he's He's definitely up there. So
Yeah.
titles. So this is where I'm going to make an argument for you. So,
Okay.
so Jeremy has 4 Olympia titles, but nothing else.
Mm-hmm.
So this is where we have to kind of discuss and talk about how much do we value other pro wins over the Olympia.
Okay.
Because when I'm hearing Andre talk about, being like the winning the most pro shows, to me, it doesn't matter much. Like if you are, let's say, number 1, number 2, number 3 in the world, to me, if you ran a season and you won 8 pro shows, it doesn't make you that much better of an athlete in my eyes, because you're the number 1, number 2 guy, right? Unless you're competing against the guy that beat you, you should win those. So like, what is it really proving other than the fact that you're the number 2 guy? Just like you are, right?
The only argument with Andre, I would say, is he's beaten every single person that has won the Olympia title, I believe.
Yes.
So it's not just like beating guys that are like, he just didn't win the big one, but he's also beaten the guys that have won the big one. So that's where you got to kind of evaluate, like, okay, the shows that he picked, it's not a matter of it being easy or whatnot. You got to take into account the amount of time to peak. But also with Buendia that we're talking on, because I don't want to get too off subject, I believe that back when he was competing, the New York and Pittsburgh was very popular, but it was bodybuilding dominant. A lot of guys didn't go to these shows as fans to really watch men's physique. It was always a really big show in general for the bodybuilders, but Classic wasn't around back then when Buendia was competing and all of that. And it really wasn't like the guys that won New York and Pittsburgh and men's physique go on to always be in that mix at the Olympia. That necessarily wasn't the thing as it is now, because a lot of these guys now, they say, if you're a top contender, you're winning the New York Pro or the Pittsburgh, you're going to be a top contender at the Olympia. So that's the shift in, I guess, the relevancy during these eras. So when Buendia was competing, the big one was that title. I mean, there's a lot of open bodybuilders too that kind of only went for the Olympia back in the day because they wanted to put all their effort for there, because if they did the New York Pro or Pittsburgh Pro, it would stunt their progress going into the big one, potentially not having them improve as much as they needed to move up. So I would still say that title-wise, I'm going to give, just like Mark Anthony, to be fair, the scale would be most importance. I would say a 2 for each Olympia ones. I would have him at an 8. I still think that it would be, I want to have the same logic with every single guy that I'm talking about, right? I know the score for Mark Anthony title-wise having just a 2, but it's the way that I'm breaking it down. I'm giving each Olympia in itself a 2. Yes. So 5 would be the greatest of all time. So a 5 would be a 10. Get what I'm saying?
Yeah. Right. Okay. Yeah, I like that. So Buendia, his physique, dominance of his era, what would you give his?
He was very dominant. When he came out, he was on the scene, won his first Olympia. I mean, he was just the champ. He was the ideal look. And a lot of the guys, wanted to have their physique emulate him more than a lot of other guys. But when he did get to the point to where he didn't end on top, I believe his last Olympia, 2018 was 4th.
2018.
Yeah, 2018 was 4th place. He did fall back a little bit, but I think it was just because the other guys were getting better. But for me, I feel like the most dominant guy usually ends on top. And for that physique, I'm going to say that in 2017, that was a 10 out of 10 dominance. He went to that show and he knew what he was doing. I remember him getting that debate with George Brown saying nobody outworks me. And he proved it. And there was still a lot of speculation that Brandon could dethrone him. There was nobody just said like a Bumstead comes in, it's like nobody's beaten Bumstead, right? There was always the people that said that, okay, another guy can beat them. Unlike how Ryan Terry is now. Ryan Terry, I think he's in a league of his own, but we'll get there. But Jeremy, he didn't end on top. So I would say just physique wise, I would give it a 7.
Okay. So a 7 because he was dominant for those 4 years he won, but because he lost
the last one. Yes.
The last one and didn't retire. Is that
because in my opinion, I think dominance is just dominating. Like it's an overall guesstimation here out of 10. So if you're talking about domination, you would think just perfect, right?
Right.
So for me, if I'm going to rate that, because there's other guys like Brandon, for example, that has been the only guy that has won multiple not consecutively. You know what I'm saying? Like you can't say that you're just as dominant. I think dominance goes to show when you're just going in with perfect scores. And I don't know the score sheets for these things. off the top of my head. But at the end of the day, anybody could add up scores anyways. If you're first place, you're first place.
Right.
But as far as overall dominance, it can't be a perfect score. Even though he's won what he did, I give him credit for that. As far as in my overall score, but as far as just being overall dominant, I'm comparing it to perfect, just ending with a perfect score of 5. So I would say 7.
Okay. Do you think his wins were pretty dominant though? His 4 wins?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Right. So
yeah.
Okay.
I mean, some could be argued. We talked earlier about what was. There was some guys that could see him as a clear-cut winner. There was some people that there was one year that I actually had Brandon beating him. It just lines, detail. Jeremy isn't known for having the best core, but he's super, super, super dry. But when Jeremy comes in a little bit on the fuller side, you might not see that conditioning hit the same way to where the muscles press against the skin. You see all the grain. So it wasn't clear-cut to me. And if it was like that to me, I'm sure it was like that to everybody else, or not everybody else, but most people. Just, I'm not trying to be biased, but that's kind of what I thought. And if that's just a thought in my head, comparing it to the other guys on this list, like a Ryan Terry or Raymont when he won in 2019, it was just kind of like you saw him on stage and it was clear cut. Even though that they did win, it's kind of like there was no argument for them not winning. Like with Ryan Terry, I don't hear anybody saying he shouldn't have won. I don't think there was one person other than an Ali Bilal flag putting all the flags in the bio saying, "Oh, he's the champ." But that's because they're fans of him. I don't think they truly believe that he shouldn't have won. Yes, exactly.
Okay, so next up we'll move to Raymont then. So what would we give him for influence?
So Raymont, he had 1 win. He was really on that come up in that year with Omar. I remember always seeing him in Dre, and I'd say the biggest influence was shifting the popularity for the taller guys in the division. So that had its own, but there's still not a lot of tall guys that do well. And because he's not as relevant today, we all want to see him come back. I always loved his physique. I thought he was one of the most peeled guys, conditioned guys, just peaked guys with sheer size. Nobody could really hold anything next to him if he was the best. And I always wanted to see how he would look in today's lineup. But the fact that he's just not here and not as relevant as some of these other guys that are doing it, I can't give him a higher score than that. So I would say 6. Yeah. It's above average, but this is also going off of the time frame that he competed. But I got to also take into account him versus the other guys on the list that are still doing what they're doing.
Right. Yeah. He dropped off big time after he stopped competing. You don't really hear much about him. He doesn't post much. So yeah, it doesn't come on podcasts. So I think that's fair. There's definitely not a lot of talk about Raymont outside of that year he was competing and winning. Okay, titles. So he has that 1 Mr. Olympia and he has 1 New York Pro.
I would put the Olympia at 2 points and I would put New York Pro at 1. So I'd give him 3.
Yeah.
I think that's fair to put it. I mean, the scale could be after we see all the scores add up, we could also change it, but this is kind of me going off of where I'm putting the Olympia at versus all these other shows at.
Where would you put the Arnold at?
1.5.
Okay.
I would put New York and Pittsburgh around the same. And also taking into account the era that they were in when he was doing Pittsburgh and I believe New York as well. That's when it was starting to get really popular in men's physique. That was the year that I turned pro and it was putting men's physique on the map because I remember doing Universe and seeing him and Dre, backstage and, kind of hanging out with all the athletes and just kind of giving advice and chopping it up. I thought that was awesome.
It was back in 2019. Yeah, 2019, They had like a booth out there, and I have a picture with both of them.
Yeah, backstage. Yeah, I remember they were like one of the guys, and that was super cool to see us because we all aspired to be pros. That's why we're there. But they were the top guys that year, and they were 1 and 2 at that Olympia that year, which is crazy.
Okay, and then his physique. So dominance for his era.
I think just overall. 2019, he beat Andre, and that was Andre's best ever. I think that's one of the greatest physiques we've ever seen in men's physique. Just Andre at that show, and Raymont was that much better, so it goes to show how dominant Raymont was. And I don't think anybody had him winning that year, to be honest with you. He beat Chiron, who was really, really good that year, and he beat Brandon, who was defending his title. Brandon was a little off at that show, but it still doesn't change the fact that he beat, the current Mr. Olympia. And usually to beat the current Mr. Olympia, you got to take him out. And he did that. I would say in that show, nobody expected it, but the fact that he came and his physique is still talked about and it still fits today's criteria. And if he came back and brought that same physique, I still think it would be a top 3 or top 4 at the Olympia.
You think?
I would say an 8. Yeah, dude, his back, his shoulders, his width. I mean, you put him like with this 2019 look, if you put him at the Olympia and you put him next to Banks, I think it would be a very similar look. And Raymont is drier than Banks. Raymont is saran wrap. Banks is probably a little bit bigger, but that conditioning is going to play a huge role.
Yeah, if you also gave him another 5 years to train and diet, then yeah.
I know he hasn't been training that whole time though, but if he stayed with it and then kept progressing,
yeah,
I still think that like if there was just a time capsule you could put him in from 2019 and just put him in the 2025 Olympia, I truly believe he still would have been in that top 5 conversation.
You think that his conditioning was good enough?
Yes.
The 2019 standard?
Yes. I wish you could screen share and pull it up. It would be hard to find here.
Yeah. Yeah. Here, give me 1 second.
I want to see what some of the other people that are viewing this think as well.
Yeah, so I have like clips I'll put in after the episode too, but let me pull it up now.
Yeah, he was a freak like back then, bro. And that's when they were, you got to remember 2018, 2019, that's when it was mass. A lot of men's physique was mass. They would reward a lot of the freaky guys too. But
so I remember there's a video somewhere here. Let me find it. Because that's a picture. Let me find the video of that.
Even videos of him in the gym and shit. But you could see even with this bad like 240p, you could see his core. His core is tighter than Banks. And I think he just with his height and his width, you know, he would just make everybody on stage look small. And that was the perk of being a taller guy. Like he was tall and he had long limbs, but he was filled out for that. Right.
But you think this level of conditioning is the same level as today's? I feel like it's a little softer, right?
Go to a picture or a video of him in the gym during that time. I remember seeing them.
Here's like a more high def picture of that, but let me see.
I know there was gym pictures of him.
Here's one.
Yeah, bro. Before peaking, I mean, vascularity, he's dry, he's grainy. I mean, he's flat here. His abs aren't popping the same exact way, but it's hard to tell when you're looking at like, I see the delt tie-ins. I see the vascularity all through the back. He has good skin tone. He has everything. I mean, things could change a little bit different on stage when you get that tan and stuff, but I just remember seeing him like gym photos like this when he was like doing updates and stuff. I mean, you're not going to get much drier than that. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
it's perspective when you look, because on stage, bro, I got stage shots from shows where I was peeled out of my mind, and it'll make you look a little bit softer just on the lighting, the camera that they use for that show. NBC News Online, I feel like sometimes, depending on the stage lighting, it can make you look a little bit softer. That's why if you take a side-by-side and you say, this is my best look, but you have a show that wasn't your best look, but the lighting was better, that show might make you look better. But you know that you're not. But it's all subjective because this is visual. You're going to go off of what people see, and you can't make them see what you know, but you can't prove because they weren't there, you know?
Yeah. But you're giving him a higher score than Buendia. So you think his overall
as far as dominance, I would say we classified physique as far as dominance, right? So I'd say
Buendia being dominant for 4 years straight, you don't think that counts for more than Raymont being dominant for 1 year?
I just still think that being the guy that went in and didn't come out as dominant in his last one still kind of takes a bruise on that score a little bit. Because if we're talking about
in 2020, or did he end it after this?
No, he completely ended it. And just the dominance of Raymont, because even now Buendia is still placing within, top 8 at the Olympia now. I believe it was 8th. I wouldn't say it's a dominant physique, but he still built his name and he has the popularity. He has the fan base. He has a really, really good look. But even with Raymont looking how he did then, if he were to bring that same look now, I still think it would be in the mix, but that's impossible. He wasn't training that whole time and whatnot. It was the same thing with Buendia. When he takes those years off, you're going to move back a little bit, especially when the sport progresses. But if I was going to put Raymont's best and Buendia's best on stage together, I mean, I'll let you answer that question. Who do you think would win?
I think that's a hot take. I would put Buendia.
You would?
I would put Buendia's 2025 look over Raymont's 2019 look. Do I think Raymont, if he kept going, could have beat everyone? Or could have been up there? Yeah. But
all right, let's put it this way. If Raymont competed with his 2019 look at the 2017 Olympia when Buendia won it, who do you think would win? And then vice versa, if Buendia had his 2017 look but competed in 2019.
Yeah, no, Raymont would have won in that case.
Yeah, so I say that both of those. And I still even would think that Raymont in 2019 would beat still Buendia's 2025.
I don't think Raymont could beat Corey Morris.
He has, though.
No, if you put his 2019 physique into 2025, like if you put that into Olympia, I don't know that he would have beat Corey Morris, who was 9th.
That's a hard one to say. I'm just going off of how dominant he was at that 2019 Olympia.
Yeah, no, for this score, yeah, this is a separate.
Yeah,
thing.
I mean, you could just say like Brandon's, look in 2023 would have been, coulda, woulda, shoulda. But I'm going off of at that time, that era, as if you just took that look and put 100% Raymont against 100% Buendia, which I believe was 2017. I still think Raymont would win. That's why I have it slightly above, because you also agreed that you would have that too.
Do you think that 2017 Buendia versus 2025 Buendia, which one would win?
I mean, if 2025 Buendia competed in 2017, he'd be last call out because he'd be too big.
Well, yeah, right.
So it depends on where you would have it, but I still think at 2017 Buendia, the conditioning was still different.
The 2017 to 2019 there's a big difference in men's physique.
Yeah, so I think in general, Buendia, he did put on a lot of size, and I think that size wasn't all good size because it did make him look a little boxier, right? The more size you add to a frame where he's like 5'7", he still fits the weight cap, but compared to where he did look before, he was slender, but his lines looked a little bit better, and it looked more appealing and polished when you look at him on stage because his symmetry was just that much better. He still has top tier symmetry. I'm just comparing it against where he was at the time in 2017 when that was what he was known as, the best men's physique.
Yeah, and he had that paper
to ever have been on stage. Exactly. So it's the same thing with like, there's certain things about my physique that have gotten better over the years, and there's certain things that kind of have changed. When your waist gets bigger, you almost got to compensate by having wider shoulders. But if you have narrow clavicles, especially a shorter guy you can't get wider. You can't change your bone structure. You just got to get bigger delts. And if you have bigger delts, you need bigger chests, you have to have everything kind of round out with it. And some of those guys start to look just, I wouldn't say the word is too big, but just boxier, especially when you're next to a Raymont who is men's physique-esque. Like
he is, yeah.
Very balanced. He had the legs for a tall guy, and he just had that look when he walked out, the sheer size with his height. I believe he was like 6'3", right? 6'2".
He was pretty tall, yeah.
Must have been the tallest
6'2",
one.
6'3".
Yeah, so he must have been the tallest one, but I mean, he looked great, man. I mean,
yeah, I would love to see 100% Raymont who kept going against like an Erin Banks right now.
Yeah. So even with those scores and even having the dominance and just having him above Buendia still reigns supreme in the overall average just because of the Olympia title. So it's still taking into account how much the Olympia titles matter because he was dominant in that aspect. But as far as the physique dominant compared, so I'm comparing to both. Yeah, because I know people can. This is all off like the top right now too.
Yeah,
so
it's
like,
this is all. Yeah. I just wanted to understand your thought process on that. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so next up we're going into Brandon. So Brandon's influence.
So Brandon's been in the game for a long time. He was my first ever posing coach. Helped me out. Back in the days, Chicago Ironclad Gym, which closed down years ago. But he was always that guy that he was known even before he was known. He just had a really, really sick physique. And then when he started blowing up, the one thing about him is he never changed. I think a lot of people saw that. They saw that he was consistent. A lot of the guys, and I'm not saying anybody specifically, nobody on this list specifically, but a lot of guys that get very fast success tend to get ego. And sometimes the fans will see that. And then the fans may not want to be their fan anymore because they don't like that. A lot of fans, they're ordinary people that aspire to be something great. So when they see their athlete that they're looking at, they want that person to not be an asshole. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
It's very hard to like somebody that is an asshole, especially when things come easy, because then it almost defeats the purpose. You know, that person that's a fan might just be like, oh, I just don't have it, you know, because it came so naturally to the other person. But I say that he's still relevant. He's still always in the conversation, always in the talks. He still has 3 Olympia titles. You know, he's going for a second Arnold championship. Everybody has him in conversation. Or I think we lost him for a second here, but it's still recording. So I didn't lose my train of thought. That's why being conditioned with podcasts and doing these for a long time, at least the past couple of years, I tend to remember what we're talking about. So keep the conversation going. But yeah, guys, for the most part, this is all just for fun. It's nothing against anybody. This is just my opinion off the top. You know, I didn't really have much time to sit down and think and do research and have all the 100% stats and whatnot. If it was up to me, I'd still have Andre on the list, but I was just talking. It was still recording.
Oh,
no, I was just talking as far as how I was going about this and my opinion on it.
Okay. Yeah. My mic stopped working. So I just had to
No, you're
leave
good,
and come
man.
back.
Did you hear what I was saying?
I could hear you. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So pretty much like Brandon's always going to be in the conversation. If he's on a list at a show, whether you love him or hate him, he's always going to be in the conversation. I think the overall influence, like the definition for influence, would just be the relevancy.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's like, how can you have an influence if you're just no longer competing or you're no longer in the industry, giving back, and not even giving back, but just being around your fans and people and doing something for the sport. I would say Brandon's around an 8. And I'm going to say 8 out of 10 because overall influence, I don't think we could see anybody being absolutely perfect with it. You know, everybody has their similarities and everybody has their differences as far as influence. And a lot of the times these guys, their goal isn't to influence. Their goal is to be the best in the world, and the influence is indirect. But when I think of influence, I think of relevance. So
yeah,
I'm going to give him an 8.
Okay, I agree with you, but I just want to clarify your thought process for people watching. So we gave Buendia 10 and we gave Brandon an 8. So we're just comparing. So Buendia is probably the max influence you can have, and we're comparing it next to that, right?
Buendia was the first one to really go on a reign that was like the household name of men's physique.
Yeah.
Brandon came after that. So comparing Buendia to like having that ultimate influence of somebody that has been at the absolute top, and just there's been a lot of things. Like we know a lot of stuff about Buendia, and just I watched one of his documentaries. I believe it was on Prime. But the guy is very well experienced in life, and a lot of us know that. And I think when you are experienced in life and you could explain that after you've already been to the top of the mountain, I think it does influence people just a little bit more than the rest. Not saying that Brandon isn't doing everything he can. Brandon's top tier, but his career is still like booming. He's still going to always be in the conversation to win the Olympia title. I can't say Buendia is in the conversation to win the Olympia title, and I honestly, truly think that he doesn't think he is. Like, he may say it, but I truly don't think he is. But that comes down to just being realistic. Like, things have changed over the years with just how the Olympia is. It's kind of like saying Big Ramy could come back and win the Open. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's just certain things that you could do well, and he's still doing great. Buendia smokes me at the Olympia every time we compete. But just for the purposes of talking about the best Olympians of all time, or the GOAT conversation, I got to be super meticulous with how I'm breaking it down.
Yeah, that makes sense. I just wanted to clarify for everyone watching. All right, so titles. So this is what we're going to see finally, because he has an Arnold title and a New York Pro title and 3 Olympias. So using your system, that would be 6 of 8.5, right?
8.5.
Does that make sense to you, or do you think it should be higher?
I'd have to see where I have Ryan.
Yeah. So in those same
that's what it
shows,
comes down to. Yeah.
So the same shows, Ryan also has 3 Olympias.
It would
1
be
Arnold
8.5
and 1 New York.
8.5.
But I will say this. So this is something that me and Sid talked about in the last video. So he put Ryan's as higher than Brandon's because he said that 1, because Ryan's were more recent, and then 2, because Ryan's were more dominant because they're consecutive in the modern era.
True, but
like those titles were worth more.
True, but I would say since we already came to the terms of physique being dominance, I would grade Ryan higher there, but not in titles, because on paper, statistically, titles should be based on a system of math, and they have the identical system right now. So if we're going off of dominance, that's why I said at the beginning of this, it depends on how you view it. Physique is going to come down to dominance. That's why I wouldn't have Brandon's physique based on how we're talking higher than Ryan's right now. Because Ryan, I would say a 10 out of 10 because he's winning straight with perfect scores in today's era, which is the hardest era of men's physique, arguably.
Yeah, for sure. Okay.
So that's
where
how
would we
I just
put
kind of
Brandon's
differentiate that.
physique?
I'd say an 8. I think that Brandon's never off. The times that he may have been a little bit off, Raymont caught him, and I have Raymont right there too. And, Brandon has one of those special physiques to where you could tell, like, if you're really going to nitpick, Brandon's balanced everywhere. Brandon doesn't have a weak back. He just doesn't have the best back in the world. It's not weak. It's good enough. And he's proved that 3 times. Brandon has a front shot that next to none. Like, it's just the highest tier, bro. Just physique with I guess I would say the dominance with winning and then losing. People could say, oh, that's a flaw. But at the same time, winning it and then losing it and then winning it again could also be a plus because it goes to show his mental fortitude. But since we're talking about physique, I'm going to say that, I'm going to dock him a little bit just for, like we talked about, the dominance.
Yeah.
And that's why it's not a 10.
Yeah. I think that makes sense. Yeah, I think that the non-consecutive wins has to be a little bit of a knock on dominance just because, you were able to get knocked off even though you came back the next year.
Yeah, that's the key word, man. But, he's the best word for him, though, is perseverance. And I know that I always love his captions when he talks on, and he's not using ChatGPT. I could tell because he's always done this before ChatGPT existed.
Yeah, for like a decade he's done this.
Yeah, but he's always been, 5 more for a hater, drink more water, focus on relationships, being better, family, God, everything, faith, waking up every morning. Today's going to be a good day. There's days that I've been off, obviously with what I've had happen last year and just kind of not feeling myself or being myself, going through things. Like, I found some sort of relief in seeing him post those things because his mindset, and I know it's just social media, you really don't know if people truly believe that, but I know Brandon on a personal level to where, dude, he's always been like that. Even before he was anything, he's always just been a really caring guy, regardless of what any other people wanted to say. I mean, I just don't have that experience with him, and I'm always going to talk fondly of him because of those things. Doesn't mean I'm going to rake him higher if it's something that I don't believe he deserves, but he's literally the perfect example of somebody that's a top tier professional because I truly believe he does the right thing behind closed doors. And at the same time, it shows in his work ethic with his physique because
I was just about to say that too.
Lose a title, come back, and it's like, how many people would that break? So a lot of pressure, man, but he's realistic with himself.
In addition to the fact that he stays lean year round, you can tell he's on his meal plan year round because he's never out of shape. You can tell that he's been able to keep up with the evolution of the sport from 2015 to now and still be in the top 3. I mean, it all just goes to show his discipline and perseverance to keep relevant through all this.
Well, the main thing for relevancy, I would say, I believe he's never been out of the top 5.
Yeah.
I think that was the stat. Yeah, I think I'm pretty sure it was in general.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that makes sense. I don't think he'd be out of the top 5 in a pro show.
Yeah. I mean, shit. Before, he's had the 4th at Pittsburgh last year, and he had 4th at, 2019 Olympia. But even then, man, like the perseverance, like winning a title, being on cloud 9, and then losing it, and then getting it back, it's just like
it takes a lot.
He's never going to count himself out. So why should any of us count him out? Nobody counted Ryan Terry in having him winning the Olympia before he did, and then he did, and he proved himself. That's why he could say, hey, I'm going to go for this, go for this, go for this.
Right.
Brandon has every right to say that too, whether people agree or not. And that's why I'm always going to have him in the conversation statistically as being the greatest of all time, in my book at least. And I have him the greatest of all time with Andre. And I think that's more so on the side of basing it on influence and what I'm personally impressed by. And it comes from character, and it comes from discipline. It just comes from the way that they hold themselves and they talk and their work ethic. And that's how I kind of view it. But it's nothing to take away from Ryan Terry because he's the same exact way. But I didn't know Ryan Terry as much. So I kind of have my own list in my head, but I still have Ryan Terry up there too. I wish there was multiple.
All right, so let's move on to Erin.
Erin, so his influence is kind of up and down, I would say. I think when Erin talks his shit and he's himself, a lot of people may not like it, but because he's unapologetically himself, that's what makes him liked. You may disagree with Erin because he may say shit that you disagree with, but I'm always going to be, keep it 100 when I'm saying like, hey, listen, like, even though I don't agree with what you say, the fact that you just said what you believe in, that's respect on my end. But over the years, I think he just doesn't want to deal with the bullshit. He has other things going on, businesses. He's a dad, even taking breaks from the podcast because he has a lot going on. I think that overall, if we're talking about bodybuilding influence, it's not going to be, as high as some of these other guys just because he's not talking as much as he once did. And I think that obviously there shouldn't be drama in these sports, but a lot of us just being fans kind of like it sometimes, especially when your favorite athletes get into it, it hypes it up. As long as it's like, respectful banter and whatnot. But I'll put him at
what were we going to give him?
I'll put him at a 7. And the main reason is because I know he goes to shows. I know he gives back. I know he helps with posing. I know he's, he does what he can for the sport. I know he brought the prize money up for Legion in 2023.
Yeah, you already lost it, right?
Yeah, I mean, he's just very selfless when it comes to that type of stuff, which I like. But at the same time, it's like, I just know that as an Olympia champ, there's always somebody that could do more. And I think that Brandon could, as far as influence, like I said earlier, their main goal isn't to influence. They're going to get indirect influence. And if you're going on stage and you're competing and you're getting known, you have hundreds of thousands and millions of followers, people are going to critique every single thing that you do. They pick apart your physique. They're going to critique everything that you do. So their main goal, I don't think, is influence, but it's like a counter product of what they do. But I always think that they could always do more. And a lot of that might stem from after they retire. Because there's only so much you can kind of do when you're so focused on one thing, and that's being the greatest of all time. So that's why I would have that at 7 for Banks.
Yeah, no, I think I would have put the same place.
Yeah.
And I think it makes sense logically too, with being higher than Raymont and Mark Anthony, but lower than Buendia and Brandon. So I think that's kind of right where
longevity, man. Let's say their influence was 5 out of 10 for just 3 years, and then Buendia had somebody that was 10 out of 10 for, let's say, 1 year. That's still 10. And then you just add it up. It comes down to longevity, right? Like an average of it. And that's kind of how I'm looking at the scale. The more we do this, I'm kind of getting more ideas of the direction that I'm thinking about it. But now I'm getting the consistency.
Yeah, and to your point, Brandon and Buendia were in the industry a lot longer and have been in the industry much longer than Erin.
Yeah,
Erin does make an effort to do a lot outside of bodybuilding. So like you said, he does try and go travel and go to other countries. He was in Dubai for a while. He was in Mexico for a while. So he does make an effort. But yeah, like you said, I think it's just the longevity part of it that would keep him from being over a Brandon or Jeremy.
Yep.
Okay,
it's hard to beat the first guys that ever do it, man.
Yeah. Yeah. So titles, he has the 1 Olympia, 2 Arnolds, 1 Pittsburgh, 1 New York, and he has that 1 Dubai too, if we count that. That was a big one. So yeah, we'll
stick to these since it's fair with all the other ones, even though the other guys don't have them. But Dubai was only a show that was the only last 2 years. So with Olympia being 2, and then what did I say Arnold was? 1.5?
Yes, that'd be 3, so it's 5. So this will be 7.
Okay. Yeah. Seems about right.
Does that
seems pretty fair? I know we could really, I'm kind of grading everything like this is just going off of the scale that I already created. I know the numbers are really close to like some, just the way that it was broken down. I could kind of say, oh, this shows a 0.5 or something like that, but we'll just keep it like that for now.
Okay.
Until I see the rest of them, because now I'm starting to see them and I'm like, okay, 7 versus, Brandon, who has, 3, like it seems very close, but at the same time, it's like,
we could edit it too. We could say that these are 0.5.
Yeah.
And
maybe we'll do that.
Okay. Well, we'll go through all of them first. We can.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's making more sense as we go. You probably think the same thing.
Yeah. Physique.
It just comes down to consistency. He brought his best look, I believe, in 2022 at Boston, then Olympia. And then it's still a top tier. Like he could come in off and he's still top 4 in the world, top 3 in the world, right? It's his structure. It just taper, his back, it's just top tier level. But it's coming down to the consistency of nailing his peak, because I know he can nail a peak, like just needs to figure out what he needs to do and do it. He did it once before, so I know he has it in him. And he talked about it in the last podcast, it comes down to focus. It comes down to, once you get up to the top really quick, it's kind of like, oh, I could get away with it. And, you could come in a little bit off and you're still third in the world. It's like, oh, fuck it. Right.
Yeah.
So I would say just physique, I would say 7.
Okay. Yeah, because even his win, it wasn't super dominant, I wouldn't say, because I think most people probably had Brandon winning that one too.
He still beat a very good Brandon. I would say that was probably the best Brandon's ever looked, is the year that Banks won. So it's kind of weird. The year Banks got second, I had Banks winning and beating Brandon. The year that Banks won, I had Brandon winning.
Yeah.
So I had them swapped.
Yeah, I had Brandon winning that one that Banks won, but yeah,
I don't even know why. I was just looking at it. I was there in person in 22, and I just remember, I'm like, I think that was one of Brandon's best. And I remember seeing Charjo, and I was like, fucking Charjo could be in that mix too.
Was that the year? Because Charjo had that one year where he was like top
22.
5, right? That was 22. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I remember I was doing Palmetto Pro in 23, and that was the highest I ever placed at a pro show at that time. And I ended up like being called back out for a top 3, and Charjo wasn't in it. I'm like, holy shit. But that goes to show the point, like, just because you beat a guy that's top 4 in the world doesn't make you top 4 in the world. Because then we came back to the Olympia, and he smoked me at the Olympia. So it's like, just because you beat somebody once doesn't mean you're always going to beat them. Doesn't even mean you beat them. You just placed higher one time because of whatever cards they were dealing with, just like you dealt with yours and you played them better that day. That's all it comes down to.
Right. Yeah. And I think when we see that a lot.
Yeah.
Same thing with like Dilson and Edvin. Like, I don't think Dilson's going to place higher than Edvin in the Olympia or.
You know what? I want to see more consistency from Dilson.
Yeah,
we'll see how it is
Arnold,
at the Arnold. Yeah, so, I want to see how it is at the Arnold with him. That'll say.
Yeah, because that would put him top 5 in the world, right? if you go by him beating Edvin.
Yep.
Okay, Ryan. So finally, Ryan. We'll go through these. So influence.
Say a 9. I think he's just, a lot of the newer guys that are in men's physique, they all know him. Bumstead has trained with him. He's with top brands. He's traveling the country. I know he's in India. He goes to a lot of and he's not from the US. So, he's making that effort to do it. He strives to be the best just like everybody else. But, he's on his runs right now, and he's extremely dominant, which will play into the physique. But, he's the ideal guy right now. And he's like the modern day Buendia, if not a little bit better, because I think he's going to go all the way. I think he might set the record with the trajectory that he's been on. It just goes to show, like, nobody is coming close to him, man. He's beating guys that aren't off, he's stayed with the evolution. He was a guy, I believe he placed every placing in the top 10 all the way to 1, so it's crazy to me. But, I think to be a 10 at anything, you got to be absolutely flawless perfect. I just think that he's not done yet, so he has more in the tank. So to get that 10, I feel like, I think a lot of these guys have already peaked their influence, and then maybe they come down a little bit. But I think he's at the prime of his influence. So I can't give him a 10 yet, because I feel like next year he's going to be more influential. Or when he breaks the all-time record, if he does, that's going to be more influential. But everybody still believes that he can. That's why, it's just going to continue to grow. So I'm not giving it a perfect score yet.
Yeah. And at this current time, would you still consider Buendia to be more influential overall than Ryan?
Yes.
Yeah. So that
makes sense. Like I said, it's hard to beat the guy that first set the record, man. It's like these conversations with any sport, it's not who breaks the record, it's who sets it first to begin with.
Yeah.
And
you're always chasing
the
that.
Most influential thing that you could ever do. Even if and when Ryan or anybody else ever breaks Jeremy's record, Jeremy still is going to be the guy who had the record set.
Yeah, who defined the division, had the record set.
Exactly.
Okay, so titles is pretty identical. It is identical to Brandon's with these 4 major ones. So are you giving them the same score then?
Same score. That's just easy math for titles, and that's kind of how I keep it. All these other shows, well, I think Ben Quill said something about Ryan had a show or whatever, and I'm like, well, Brandon had a at a Tampa Pro. Ryan doesn't have a Tampa. Like, you could go tit for tat on all these, but the ones that matter when we talk about the big four, and there's always miscellaneous shows that could be thrown in there, these are the main ones that we're focusing on just for this video. Somebody disagrees, they can make their video and explain a little bit better. But like I said, this is off the top, and I just think it's easy for number purposes.
Yeah,
I don't think the GOAT should be rated just off of numbers, but it depends when you're talking with somebody about the GOAT status that you kind of go through what each thing actually is, so then you could add that average in, because it is a accumulation of a lot of different things rather than just, the stats of how many shows that you win, which play a big role in it though, but it's not going to make up the overall score.
Then Physique, I think this one
10.
Yeah, 10. That's what I was thinking too. Can't get much better than
he's getting perfect scores at the Olympia. I mean, everybody gets feedback no matter what level. You could come in as the flaw, like Ronnie Coleman, the greatest of all time. People say there'll never be anybody like him. You could still argue that, he didn't have the best core. There's always going to be somebody or something that you could, nitpick and say this could be a little bit better. But for where he's at compared to all these other guys, the dominance in the run and just having the physique in today's era with the conditioning, the fullness, the posing, the front to back, every angle that he hits, it's just, I don't see anybody really touching him. I really don't. I don't see how he could be beat unless he was just really off from being sick or something, or just retired,
Yeah. Or what did you think about his finals look this past year? If he came in prejudging like as he did in the finals, do you think he could have been beat?
Honestly, no, man. Not compared to the other guys, because I always ask myself this: was it the best Ryan that we seen? No, it wasn't the best Ryan Terry. The best Ryan Terry was 2023. 24, he had some gut problems, and then 2025, I think he overplayed the conditioning to where he was a little bit more stressed out, to where he didn't have the same pop or fullness, but he was peeled out of his mind. If Ryan was gonna lose, who would you have had over him and why? That's what I asked myself.
I think that in this past year, if he showed up like he did at finals at prejudging, you could have made an argument for Brandon or Ali. Because I actually think Brandon could have been second.
Not with the back. Nobody was beating Ryan's
Brandon
back. Not with Ryan's back. So Brandon has the best front in men's physique. I mean, there could be arguments with that and whatnot. Brandon's core is crisp. Ali's core is crisp. I put them with the top best 3 cores in men's physique. But I do think that the back is still such a big pose for a lot of these guys. And Ryan closes the door significantly. No matter how good the front is of Brandon, Ryan still has a really, really good front. Mm-hmm. Ali may have just better core, but he doesn't have the overall front that Brandon has. Ryan closes the door on both of them from the back. Now you got a guy like Banks who his front is there with the silhouette and the shape and all of that. He didn't have the same conditioning, but he has the best back. And Sandy said that in the podcast, that the only person that could rival Ryan's back in that top 4 was Banks. He just needs to get his polish back. But with that being said, I mean, I just don't see how either Ali or Brandon could have really caught up to Ryan, even with his final look, if he brought that to prejudging. I mean, it could have went both ways, but if you got a score of 5, that just shows that every single judge had him in first, prejudging, and finals. So it's kind of hard to argue with that, especially when the judges are the ones that see this front row. And I've seen it, in person, just being there and seeing Ryan on stage at prejudging, and then, finals. It's different in person. A lot of it is kind of how you see it with your own eyes. Like in color, man, it's completely different. And you know that.
Yeah. No, I guess that's true. Yeah, because Ryan is, his prejudging was so dominant that even if he's a little off, it was still more dominant.
It's not even that he's off. It's not even that he's off. It's just in comparison to his best. I don't know if you got to remember, he's been doing this for a long time, dude. Mm-hmm. My body starts aching. I've been doing this for 11 years. There's certain things that I just can't control, no matter how low my cortisol is and whatnot. Anything could happen with travel, especially him being, from another country, so right. Anything can happen with being off, but we're always going to compare each athlete to their previous best. We're always going to look at Banks, no matter how good he says he's coming in or whatever. We're going to always compare it to 2019 or 2022. We're always going to compare each guy to their best. And Brandon's harder to compare to his best because I don't know what one Brandon's best is. I really don't. He's so dialed in at each one. It's like 1 or 2%. I can't really tell. He's the only one that could probably say that. And that's coming from probably just how he felt, probably the most uh, easy, stress-free show. That's probably going to what cater to his look. But dude's pretty chill for the most part.
Yeah.
I can't say what look would be his best. But Ryan, I think there's so many variables that go into it that we're always going to look at, okay, was this Ryan Terry from 2023? No? Okay, then it's not his best. But still, he's winning. So it's like hard to say it's not his best. But for the untrained eye, a win is a win, bro. With a perfect score, it's like, how can you get much better?
And I do think his prejudging look this year was probably his all-time best.
I didn't like his tan as much.
What about his outside of the tan? Insofar as actual peak?
Yeah, I seen him at prejudging. I thought his conditioning was just that much next level, but I did think he was a little bit flat from 2023. Not flat in general, to clarify, like not saying
flat compared
he's
to
flat.
2023.
Yeah, I'm saying flat compared to like a full-blown 2023. He just looked really like rested and polished. It looked like he was really like in his head at prejudging, maybe just in the zone and just kind of zooming around and like kind of doing all this stuff. Like it just seemed like he was, I don't know, the look to me just wasn't the same. It could also just be me too. Perspective always changes, but just judging by the 2023 look, when he kind of just he didn't have the pressure, was kind of like,
there's no expectations at that point.
Yeah, so that's kind of how you would have to ask him. But that's just kind of what I think,
Yeah, I mean, I'll take your word for it over mine because you're backstage with him and you see him up close. So
hey, I see a lot of bodies for a living, bro, and it's like I could be wrong. I look at my own physique and I feel like I'm flat, and just because I feel like I'm flat doesn't mean I am flat. And then my coach will be like, no, you're good, man. Get out of your head. So the way that I look at myself could be the same way that I look at other people. So I gotta, it's just like a perspective thing. I try to explain it the best way I can.
Okay, so do you want to go back and make these 0.5 instead of 1?
Yeah, let's make Pittsburgh 0.5 and New York 0.5.
Yeah, and keep Arnold 1.5.
Yep.
Okay, so that would make this one 2.5. Make this.
Sorry, Raymont. It sounds bad, but it's only in the list of the big 6.
Yeah.
It's not in general. I would be a 0, bro.
So then Erin would be 2 plus 3, 5 plus 6. Yeah. That would be 8.
It's looking a lot more accurate to me, I think.
Yeah.
What do you think?
So that would. Okay. Any other changes you want to make in terms of any of these numbers before we tally up, look at the finals?
Let me see. I'm going to put Mark Anthony's influence. I'm going to knock it down to 4. Only because I see Raymont's at a 6, and I still think Raymont was more influential because when he won the Olympia, men's physique was still bigger.
Yeah.
Mark Anthony may have been the first one to do it, but I mean, that influence was just short-lived. Yeah, it was just a short-lived influence. Like, he's still at shows, he still gives back. He's still, with Jen, who's competing in bikini and stuff, which I think is great. But compared to the other guys that are at the top that've been doing this, I think it's just
right.
That's the main one that I would clarify. Yes.
And if we would say the same thing for classic. Like, I think Danny Hester is definitely the least influential classic person by a good margin.
Yeah, I know a lot of the old heads will say, they always knew Danny from back in the day and whatnot, but it just, the influence, we're just going strictly off of, I would say, relevancy. That's what I keep saying. So each category has its own key word that I'm trying to base it off of to give the viewers an idea of what we're talking about, just as far as a definition. Because what is influence? It's like, how many people do you reach? It's not just following or anything like that. It's about, how many people, could really, just be moved by you, or, be motivated to work out or lift or whatever. It's not just motivation, but it's just, the overall, like, I guess, what's the word for it? Push that you have in the league.
Yeah, it's a combination of all those things. And yeah.
I'm thinking out loud.
Everything else look good?
Looks good to me.
Okay. So let's look at the final scores then. So in 6th place, we'd have Mark Anthony with a 4.0. In 5th place, we would have Raymont, the 5.5.
Actually makes me
fourth.
feel a lot more confident with the way that we broke this down, because we had, it's not just saying, oh, this is the best. We actually went into detail to explain our perspective on it, to where if somebody thought different, it's just, you could argue the logic that we're thinking, or, whatnot. But I think a lot of people that would have the list this way.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think we broke it down, gave rationales for everything. And the only thing that could change is if you define what one of these mean. But then, yeah, that's a different thing then. So Erin next with 6.7, and fourth. Third would be Brandon with an 8. Then Jeremy with an 8.3.
It's those Olympia titles and the influence, man.
Yeah. And then Ryan with a 9.
What would Brandon's score be if he wins the Arnold? That would be an extra 1.5. What would that average go to?
That's true. That's a good point. Let's see. So he wins that, so that'd be an extra 1.5. So that'd be 9.5.
9.5, yeah. So his average would probably go up to 8.5, right?
That would put him above Jeremy.
Yeah. So just for reference.
Yeah. So this list in 2 weeks could be
which I think is fair, to compensate for the one Olympia. Brandon would have 2 Arnolds to surpass somebody that doesn't have 2 Arnolds but has an extra Olympia. So
yeah, I think that's fair too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's good. So do you agree with this as it is, or do you feel like Brandon should be above Jeremy?
No, I mean, I agree with it, because a lot of it is, I like to learn, man. I don't like to argue with people over opinions and stuff, because we all have one. It's more or less like, once you could dive into the logic and really see the hamster wheel moving in your head and have a reason as to why something is this way, I mean, this makes a lot of logical sense for me. It's so easy to just be like, okay, 1 through 6, we could just put them in places. It's the same thing with NFL players or basketball players, greatest of all time talk, sports, all that. But when you have, the average of the 4 things that we were talking about, and you get that number, it could be very close, but we talked about it with reasoning to give that perspective. And that's why I thought that this was a super cool idea. But honestly, man, like, I'm cool with it. I mean, I explained it the best way that I can. I mean, I always have gone back and forth on this list a lot. Arguing just titles, Ryan and Brandon would be tied. As far as just overall titles, overall pro wins, and everything else under the sun, obviously with Olympia meaning the most, but Brandon and Ryan compensate by their wins outside of the Olympia as well. So it's difficult to, outside of the numbers, to kind of find somebody, but the influence is going to be subjective, because they all have influenced. It's just how much. And there's no way to get a real accurate number on how much did this person influence. It doesn't come out to a total.
There's no perfect metric for that. We have to.
Exactly. You can't go off of followers. It's different eras. Andre made a comment about, if he were to delete his Instagram now, he probably wouldn't crack 100K again.
Yeah, it's way different.
Social media is different. Yeah. So for the guys that do have millions now, it's a lot of that was built up over the years with algorithms, and before TikTok and all of that, it defaulted to just Instagram, so you would get followers quicker and whatnot. But I mean, that's why.
And the market just wasn't as saturated back then either.
Now everybody's an influencer and has their tripod in the gym and wants to get that next viral video. But
exactly, and some of the biggest influencers are not bodybuilders. So
exactly, brother, exactly.
Yeah, well, I think this looks like a good list. I agree with it. I think the breakdown was really good and logical. So if you agree, disagree, would place things differently, would define things differently, let us know in the comments, and we can go through and address some of those things too.
And if somebody wants to address it, make sure that you go through each single one and explain why in detail, like we did. I'm not saying we're always right. It's going to come down to, you have to have communication to kind of see what side of the end zone you're on sometimes. And I think this was the most rational way to break it down and just kind of give the explanations. And like I said many times, this is just off the top of the head right now. So it's not like something I sat down and thought about. And, sometimes when you go back and you can reevaluate it, it might be a little bit different, but not much to where it's going to change these averages out like crazy.
Yeah. I think the overall rankings are pretty indicative of.
How was your other one? What was it?
It was this, I think it was just Jeremy and Brandon were flipped. So let's see, Jeremy. So we were dividing physique differently, right? So we're defining it as how competitive are they in today's landscape.
Probably
So obviously
just
that
overall,
would
yeah.
give Brandon a huge advantage over Jeremy. In that
I would
sense.
have to say Jeremy would be an 8 because out of the top 10, he was 8th place.
Yeah, no, I agree.
I mean, that's what it would come down to. You're ranked 8, so that would mean that your physique's 8 out of 10. Oh man.
And then I think the other thing was Sid had Brandon as more influential than Jeremy. So he gave Jeremy a 9 and Brandon a 10. And I think he gave Ryan a 9.5. So that was the other difference between that.
Yeah,
But he
all
gave
very
Jeremy a 10
similar.
for titles because he had the most Olympia wins.
Yeah.
So yeah, everyone looks at it differently. So that's why, like, yeah, if you disagree, just tell us what your logic is and where you're coming from and how you're defining things, and then
It
that'll
makes
be
sense.
interesting to hear.
It makes sense when you look at like the Olympia titles. Just having 4 Olympias is like the king in most people's minds, but you know, having an Arnold is also very important too, because a lot of the times previous Olympia winners go to the Arnold, and you could have a battle to where it's a mini Olympia and you're beating one of these guys.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's kind of why I kind of always add that into the conversation. But at that time, Buendia, you know, I don't think the Arnolds were as popular in men's physique, and if they were,
Yeah,
he was
I don't
just
think so
focusing
either.
on the big one. Yeah.
Yeah, because I think back then, I know Sadiq won in like 2015, but I can't remember who won outside of that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Sadiq won like 2015 and 2016. Did Buendia ever compete at an Arnold?
No, he never did.
Okay.
Kind of like Phil. Phil never competed at Arnold either, did he? No, he did.
No,
like early.
I don't think so. Oh, maybe in 13.
I don't think like before he won the Olympia. I think maybe.
Yeah, a lot of these guys never did New York or Pittsburgh either.
Yeah, that's why my argument for like just winning pro shows is not necessarily, if you're the Olympia champion, you might just not feel the need to. You just want to focus on the big
I think
ones.
it's different though, because Mr. Olympia, it's hard to run a gauntlet being that big, being on, you know, obviously more gear,
Right.
unless you're just genetically, you know, inclined to just get away with, you know, what a men's physique guy does, but that's usually not the reality. Men's physique, like every show's stacked. You see it, especially now with the qualification system. Open bodybuilders, it's almost like a dying breed now, to where you're not seeing more than 10 guys at a show. Men's physique, you're seeing 25, 30, especially with the qualification system. So that's why I think it's a little bit different, especially with division too. Like look at bikini. Like bikini, you got Ashley Kaltwasser that's doing 2 shows in 24 hours,
every
bro.
show.
Like no bodybuilder's ever doing that, you know. Benny, I think, did it last year.
Except
he won
Benny.
2 shows, and Benny, I think, was the first ever guy to win 2 in one day or whatever.
Dude, that was insane. Yeah, because I saw him at Junior Nationals, and he's like, about to drive up to where was the other show, Louisiana or something. And then
that's crazy, dude. That was wow. That's a good payout, but I mean, listen, if it was on the way, I wonder if he planned it or if it was just a whim because he won. He's like, why not?
Yeah, I think it's probably just
you're already tan, you're already shaved.
Yeah, might as well hit them both. Yeah,
you got the
maybe
prize
he just
money
planned
for that
to do
show.
both.
Yeah,
because he knew he'd win one of them to qualify.
Yeah,
but he won.
Benny's
both.
like awesome. That, bro. He's like, he doesn't say much usually, and it's just like, it's like Mehdi too, bro. Mehdi does not say much, and then you'll just see him go on like a rampage, and he's like the first one to qualify every single year, and it's just like, where'd this guy come out of?
And just do every single show. Yeah, no, Benny was he was my first coach.
Yeah. But, sweet. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Cool, man.
Yeah, back in 2023. But yeah, he's a good dude.
Sweet.
Cool. So we can end this here, and again, let us know what we think if you disagree, because I'm excited to see, especially the Raymont thing. I want people to chime in on that too.
Yeah.
Where would Raymont place in 2025?
I want to know Raymont himself, what he would say.
Yeah.
That would be sick to get him on. I always wanted to kind of see what was going through his head, because, you know, a lot of people, I think he started a gym or whatever, but you always want to hear it from the horse's mouth himself. Like, hey, listen, bro, like, were you satisfied? Like, how did you feel like at your prime? Like, you know, what did you think? What did you feel about your physique? Is this something that you wanted to, like, I always want to ask those questions because I can relate a lot as an athlete, but at the same time, as a fan, I want to know.
Yeah, and it's really rare to see that from I see you see it in bikini sometimes, but for men's division, for like the champion just to walk away and not compete again.
Ended it on top, bro. But that's pretty dope that he did that, and it's got to be really hard to do that too.
Yeah, that would be really interesting to hear about why and how things are going.
Yeah.
But, thanks for coming on.
Awesome, man. Had a blast with this. I'm curious to see how people are gonna gonna react to this and maybe put some snippets on and whatnot too to kind of
Definitely.
have people see what we're about on this new thing that we're doing.
All right. Well, let me go and stop recording.